welcome everybody to the latest edition of the Inside Track. Now, we're very lucky today. We've got a industry titan, I think is probably the best way to say it, Paul. I know you probably won't put yourself in that bracket, but obviously I've been in the industry 25 years and I've known about you ever since I came in the industry. So welcome to the podcast, Paul. Obviously, retention guru, as your brand is, but welcome aboard. How are you?
I'm fine. And do you know what? I'll live with Titan. I get upset when people call me legend because I come from a generation where you had to climb Mount Everest to be a legend or swim the channel. Now all you've got to do is open a packet of crisps and someone calls you a legend. And I'm like, so Titan I can live with.
I like when they call footballers brave and stuff. You're like going, really?
Really? Yeah.
Brave is the front line in Ukraine. Brave isn't playing football. It just the two don't match. But
no.
But there you go. Now I can imagine, obviously, being the industry person that you are, that most people know who you are, Paul. But it might be good for some.
Yeah.
Just to give us a quick run through in terms of where your background is and what your company does now.
Right. So been in the industry over 30 years now. Started as a gym instructor. Worked as a personal trainer, worked my way through a YMCA right the way up to the general manager. And I've worked in both commercial and non-commercial leisure, so public sector. Spent 14 years training people to be personal trainers at the YMCA. Yeah, that's Keith Smith, who we both know, was a student of mine. And in fact, there's a lot of people in the industry. Yeah, there's a lot of people in the industry that were students of mine. A long time ago. But yeah, I spent 14 years there. I was like one of the senior lecturers. But it's one of those things now that because I've had Retention Guru for more than half my career, most people don't even think back that far. And look, I got to a point where I wasn't happy with the direction in which training was going, the education side of training was going. And so thought, you know what, I'm going to step aside, I'm going to study academically and I'm going to go and work in the university. And I did a master's degree in exercise and health behaviour, a psychology master's, and really enjoyed it. And then I thought, I want to do a PhD, I want to do research. Asked around a few universities, couldn't get anywhere. And then I was really fortunate, a sort of friend stroke colleague at the time, a guy called Dr Melvin Hilsden was working in London. Yeah. And he said to me, he goes, well, why don't you come and do your PhD with me? And I was like, someone's actually offered me one. And so I signed up for doing a PhD, and I was stupid enough to try and do another master's while doing a PhD. So I did a research master's and a PhD at the same time. And then thought I was going to be an academic. Couldn't get a job in academia to save my life because none of the universities want to study commercial fitness and health behaviors in commercial environments. They want to do physical activity programs like walking. They want to do health promotion. They want to do sports medicine or sports performance. And I'm like, no, I just want to understand why people join clubs and leave. And so when I didn't get an opportunity to do that, I thought, right, well, I'm going to start a small consultancy business. And I did. And originally it was called Re-Aim. And then after about 2 or 3 years, we rebranded it into Retention Guru. And I've had, my sister will laugh because she works within the business, but for years, if people called me the Retention Guru, I'd get really upset and go, no, that's the name of my business. It'd be like people going, oh, he's the Black Raccoon. No. He's Ryan. His business is called Black Raccoon. But do you know what? I've given up now. I'm like, okay, I'll go with it.
The problem you've got is your brand is very much you as well. And I know obviously there's a lot of other people working in your business, but the face of the business is you. So when you look at it, because I've made that mistake and gone, oh, it's Paul the Retention Guru.
Yeah,
it probably flows, but yeah.
And look, and I'm not probably. Pre-pandemic, I would be like, Ryan, that's not it. Now I'm like, yeah, all right. I accept it as part of my personal brand. And look, to date, we're up to what we've done. I think if I include what we did last month, we've probably assessed now 8 million member records in 33 different countries. Yeah. So
Wow.
we've got data on, like, we've done analysis in over 5,500 clubs. Now, when you think about that, sometimes they come in big blocks. Like there's one we're doing at the moment. A business has got 500 clubs, so sometimes it's quite easy to add big numbers, and other times it's one at a time. But yeah, over the time since we were going, about 5,500 clubs we've done analysis for.
That's crazy. And I guess obviously you could probably pluck some numbers out your head, but I can imagine from when you started it back in like the early noughties, mid that sort of time, to where it is now.
Yeah,
I can imagine a lot of that data has changed significantly in terms of the reasons why people leave and the reason why people take up exercise. And so,
yeah, but some of them are fairly standard. It's
are
like,
they?
yeah, and it's like we do a thing, and it's one of my sort of keynote presentations called the top 10 factors impacting retention, and it's all based on data. And the number one thing is visits. The number one thing affecting retention is visit frequency. Because if people aren't visiting, actually, the quality of the exercise equipment you've got, irrelevant. Trainer education, irrelevant. Beauty of your facility, price of your facility, irrelevant. They're not coming.
Yeah,
so
absolutely. Yeah.
You've got things, excuse me, coughing.
Okay.
You've got things that are almost like inherent within the businesses that impact retention. Now, the way we think about it is retention's an outcome. So it's not one thing impacts retention. Lots of things can impact retention. And it used to be in our top 10 list, group exercise was at number 8, and it's now at number 4. And people say to me, why has it gone from 8 to 4? I thought it was always important. I mean, we could never analyze it, because we didn't know who was going to group exercise and who was going on the gym floor. We knew who turned up, but we didn't know where they went. Now with apps and people booking, we can do analysis and go, if someone booked and visited, we'll have to make the assumption they turned up for the class. Excuse me.
No, you're okay, Paul.
But we can track that. One of the things at the moment that, and I know it's been reasonably popular for the last 18 months again, is onboarding, the value of onboarding. Now, my PhD study was on onboarding and behavior change techniques. If you go to most operators and say, who's had an onboarding session, an induction, something like that, most of them can't tell you. So you can't show the value of something if you can't track it.
It's one of the big things I work. I mean, obviously not to the level that you do, but when I go into clubs, it's one of the first things we do is, what is your onboarding? What's your client journey?
Yeah.
So the moment that person signs up, what happens? And it's incredible. And this is not aimed at independent clubs. This is independent. This is big commercial clubs. It doesn't really matter. You look at the onboarding, and it's still really poor in our industry.
Oh, and look, you may have been around long enough to remember this. When I was first in the gym, working as a gym instructor, your day was based around how many inductions you did. So if you had an 8-hour shift and you did 6 inductions, your manager would consider that a good day because you were actually doing inductions. Now it's almost, people are resistant, even staff are resistant to doing it. Oh, do I have to do one? Do I really need to do one? It's like, actually, it's not for you. It's for your client, your customer, your member, whatever you call them. And I think we've undervalued that probably for the last 10 years.
I remember when I started at Spirit Hotels,
right?
Well, Spirit it was at the time, but we had like the only independent one that wasn't linked to a hotel, which was really bizarre. But every member, this was literally everybody had to have a fitness test and an induction to use the gym. That's how it was. 2 hours. It was 2 separate things. Yeah, and that was the process. We had 1,000 members. Every single one. I remember when we opened that, because we did the pre-sale in open. It was chaos to get everybody through that. But the rule was everybody had it. But our retention levels were huge. Yeah,
and I think my thinking's evolved, because when I did my PhD, it was a 4 appointment over the first month, and that evolved out of, again, Dr. Melvin Hilsden's research on visit frequency. But I think what's happened is that with low cost coming in, the low cost, the budget market, where there isn't really an induction, people are looking in and going, well, they're not doing it. Do we need to do it? And they've lost the value of, actually, if I invest in someone when they join, they're going to stay longer. When it's like, we've done a calculation where, based on my PhD, but if you spend an extra hour with a member, so you do a 1 hour induction and you spend another hour with them over a period of time in the first month, you can get an extra 7 months out of them.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Wow.
So if you can get, for an extra hour's staff time, you get an extra 7 months of income beyond what you normally would have got. To me, that's a really simple math in terms of, I spend, let's say it's £15 for a member of staff, £15 to get
40 quid membership, 280 quid. Happy days.
Yeah. And if someone came to you and said, for every £15 you give me, I'll give you 280 back, you'd be going, how much money can I find?
Exactly.
But
even crypto doesn't do that.
No.
It is crazy. I mean, it was simple things like, I remember watching you at LIW many years ago, and I think one of the stats you came up there was if you speak to literally. So we introduced the Fab Five, hello, goodbye, and all that sort of stuff with our clients at Marriott, because I know you did some work at Marriott with us. But it was almost you speak to that client once, and they stay an extra 2 months. So in that first month, and the stats, when you started looking at just simple communications, hello, goodbye, speaking to on the gym floor, and you're not looking rocket science here. You're almost looking, so we're not having to put big investment programs in. We're not having to hire shed loads of staff. You literally have a person on the gym floor. Hi, Paul, how you doing? Someone on the reception. Hi, how's your day? Yeah. It was literally that. And because of your research, it was showing that we were getting 2 to 3 more months out of that person. And it's just bonkers when you think that's simple. I don't need a new treadmill. I don't need shiny kit. I don't need a pool or all this extra investment. I literally need to say hello to someone. Yeah.
And I know I've got some work coming up, and I've been briefed about the team I'm going to be working with. And one of their challenges is they don't think the quality of their venue is good enough. And I'm like, okay, well, I work with personal trainers who work in parks. I said, they don't have a venue. They have grass and trees and walls and are charging £75 an hour. Why are you complaining? You've got, it's not beautiful, their venue, but, people are making the decision. People are walking in, looking at it, looking at the price and going, I'll join. But the staff are going, not sure you should have joined because we don't really like it. And you're like, the customer's made the choice. They've got so many options now. It's not, again, I think it's too self-centered. And I mean that not in a really arrogant way, but it's like, it's not about you as a trainer or a member of staff. It's always about the customer and how they perceive what they're getting as value for money.
Yeah. So in terms of all the research you've done and the clubs you work with, obviously the 5,500 and so on, when you go into a club and they have an attrition issue, they're flowing out the back door, the bucket's got massive holes in it. Yeah. What's generally the first things that you look at? So if a club was to sort of say, Paul, what do we need to focus on first? What tends to be the starting point?
Well, if we can, we'll do data analysis, because I like to work from a point of data, because then I can track the changes we've made as well. Yeah. Now, absolutely. So with we'll calculate lifetime value. We'll split that by different things like age and gender, membership type, so we can look for patterns. If I was tackling attrition, so I'm always interested in, I tend to focus on how many extra months can we add? Can we push the length of time? So if I'm going to lose 100 people, I'd rather lose them after 12 months than after 3. Yeah. But I'm still going to lose 100 people. But when we delve into the attrition side of it and we look at, of those 100 people, how many of them came to the end of a contracted period? How many of them have left because of this reason? I want to know what's driving those numbers. So I don't just treat the 100 as this homogenous group. Oh, they've all just left. Well, they've left for different reasons. And if someone's been, let's say you got 100 people that have left and 50 of them have been members for 5 years, you go, probably that's good enough.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
You know, whereas the others, you might go, you know, if 50 of them had left and they'd only been a member of like 2 months, you'd be like, there's something wrong here. We're either marketing to the wrong people, or we're not supporting people who need support in the beginning, which goes back to that induction onboarding process.
Okay. And in terms of, because you raised an interesting point there in terms of contracts. So there's always a big discussion, especially in the independent side of it. Should I have a contract? Shouldn't I? Is there a noticeable difference in terms of those clubs that do have a contract and those that don't, as regards retention?
Yeah. People who have contracts stay longer.
There you go.
Simple as that. Not only do they stay longer, but when they do stop coming, that's closer to the point that they were going to end their contract. So it's like you have two end points. You have the point at which they stop paying and the point at which they stop visiting. People on contracts, the point between when they stop paying and visiting is fairly close together. Now, there's, you know, should you have a contract? I always advise my clients to have the option of a contract.
Yeah.
But it
in terms of sort of cheaper value with a contract.
Yeah. Now, look, I worked probably best part of 8-9 years ago with the gym group. And when I first worked with the gym group, obviously, you know, high volume, low cost budget operator, I was invited to speak to their board, and I sat down and the chairman of the board said to me, "What if you were running this business, what's the first thing you would do?" And I said to him, "I'd introduce the option of a contract." The whole board lit up. Like, we've built our whole business on the fact easy in, easy out, no contracts. And I went, yeah, but you don't even give me the option of a contract. I said, I'm not saying take away month by month by month, but you don't even give me the option. You don't even give me the option. And at the time, it was less than £20. You know, I could walk in and you go, for £200, you get 12 months instead of 240. I'd probably go, yeah, I can afford that. Have £200 now. So for me, it's always about having, you know, some viable options, probably a paid up front, a contracted period, and a month by month. But I wouldn't, you know, one of the things we see really challenges businesses is when they have like 9 different membership types. It's just crazy.
It doesn't make sense. I work with a lot of clubs where you go in and literally, right, we're stopping to sell those. We're going to grandfather all those out, and we go with 3, 4, 5 max, because there's no need to have. Depending, I mean, I work with some country clubs, for instance, and they're really difficult because they tend to have a strange demographics, as you well know with your time at Marriott. But it's you have those over 55s, those over 60s, and they tend to be the mainstay of the business. So they want to reward them. So they end up having an over 55s. Then you got the over 55 annual contract, and it soon adds up. And I've seen clubs with 30, 35 memberships, and you just go, how do your membership team sell this? Yeah, it's for someone just looks at it and goes, shall we get you started? Oh, look at all of that. I'm going to go away and think about it.
I do the same I work with a fair amount of universities, and they have to have a different membership for students, faculty, alumni, commercial, corporate, and like no one can pay more than the students. So sometimes the increments are just £1. So it's like, if it's the all-inclusive membership for student, it's £30. If it's all-inclusive price for staff, it's £31. It's like, because they have to differentiate. And I'm like, just anyone who works in the university, it's this. It's like, exactly. And then they go, well, we want on a peak and off peak. And I went, why? I don't get it. But
do you know what's funny is, and I found this working with golf on the and full one. So actually, the guys who come in during off-peak hours and get the discount should technically pay more because they get the better service. Yeah. We had so obviously golf clubs have a lot of retired people, so they tend to have 5-day golf. So they won't come at the peak time Saturday and Sunday, but they'll also play 5 days a week.
Yeah.
So they're getting a discounted rate to pay 5 days a week. The poor person who's got a full membership, generally, it'd be like me and you are still working, can only play on a Saturday, so play once a week. So they play once a week versus 5 and play pay sometimes twice as much.
Yeah.
And we looked at that and went, hold on a minute. If you looked at damage and wear and tear or anything like that, those guys need to be paid more. Now, we never did that.
No.
When you looked at it as a perception, you're like going, hold on a minute. Why are they paying more? It doesn't make sense.
Yeah. The other thing I would say, Ryan, is, and I saw this, I was fortunate enough to work with Third Space many years ago when they were just 2 clubs in central London. And they had a really easy pricing. It was like £100 a month. And I know it's a lot more now. It's £100 a month or £1,000 for the year. And because the numbers are so simple to do in your head, people went, oh yeah, I get a deal. Whereas when you go, oh, it's £1,998 per 12 months, or you can get, and they give another number, and you're like, am I actually getting a deal?
Yeah.
I think sometimes the simplicity of numbers can be really, really useful to go, there's this, and there's this. The other thing I would say is, and we've seen this whenever we've done the research, always and that's an example of Third Space going, you get 12 months for the price of 10. You're actually much better off in terms of retention doing 14 months for the price of 12 rather than 12 for the price of 10.
Is that right?
Yeah, because not only do you get the 2 extra months of money, instead of 10 months money, you get 12 months money. People who perceive they're going to be there in 14 months actually stay longer.
But I guess as well is you're pushing them over that 12 months as well, aren't you? So now they're into a long-term membership. So it doesn't become because mentally 12 months is 12 months, isn't it? It's a break. So if you push that over that, I can imagine psychologically they're thinking, oh, I'm into that next year now. We just carry on.
And look, the example I've always used, sorry, mate, the example I've always used is this. Have you got a mobile phone contract yourself? Or you pay as you go?
Oh, right. No. It's
a contract. How long's your contract? Roughly?
2 years, I think it is.
2 years. So how often do you think about changing your phone?
Probably every year.
Well, you think about it, but when do you take action on it? When your contract's out?
Yeah, absolutely.
So mentally, and this is one of the things we understand from studying the psychology of what's going on, if people commit to longer terms, they tend to stick to longer terms. The challenge with doing month by month in terms of convenience is that you give someone an opportunity every month to quit. And they have to go each month, stay quit.
And that's the big thing with personal training as well. So if you flick quickly into the personal training, when I was at Holmes Place, and I was working with Malcolm Armstrong, one of the big things we did, we were the first club to introduce personal training by direct debit. The main thing behind it was every 10 sessions, they're having to rethink about buying. So we're having to resell to them every 10 weeks or every 5 weeks, depending on how many sessions. And then that becomes a reason to leave.
Yes.
When we put it on direct debit, they just carried on. And I mean, we went from like 20 grand a month to almost, I think the best we did when I was there was 56 grand a month on personal training. It was bonkers money. You're like, that's more than most clubs do on their whole revenue. And we were just like, and all it was shifting it to direct debit. So these people just carried on. It became the norm, like their membership, instead of going, I've got to find 500 quid now. I've got to find, they didn't have to do that. It just kept ticking over and it just worked.
Yeah. And if you look at how investors look at things now, if it's a subscription based, they're much more likely to invest in you. They're also more likely to pay more for your business than if it was a termed period. And a lot of my clients in the States and my friends who run PT in the States, they've been doing that subscription type PT. Well, you sign up for this amount per month and you get this number of sessions per month. I suppose the thing I would say for anyone who's doing that, in terms of personal training, people who book same day, same time stay longer than people who book ad hoc hours.
Is that right?
Yeah. So if you've got a Monday night slot at 6 o'clock and you say, I have this available and this is what it costs, you're much more likely to maintain that client over a longer period than if they can come Monday night one week and Tuesday another time. And just because you actually, and I've said this many times, but you actually create a routine of I know where I'm going to be on these days and times. And that's really one of the big impacts that group exercise has, because it's same day, same time.
Oh, absolutely. And I think any club that has a really solid performing Group X side always has strong retention. It just does naturally, because people turn up for the instructor, they turn up to their mates in the classes. Like you say, it's the same time every week, so they get it structured into their lifestyle. It just becomes the norm, doesn't it? It is amazing. Humans are very much creatures of habit. When you look down into the pure fundamentals of it, we are creatures of habit, and if you can create that habit, it just carries on. And like I say, whether that's smoking or the gym, once you create that habit, it's very hard to break.
Yeah, and look, at the individual level, we're very different, but at the group level, we're really similar. So people think, well, I'm really different. I'm not like that. No, you might not be like that exactly, but actually in most situations, you're like everybody else is. There's a really nice piece of research, and I can't remember, it's in a book by Ken Fox called The Physical Self, where he talks about groups of friends. Now, we've all got groups of friends. Some of us haven't, but all got groups of friends. But we all assume that our group of friends is unique, and there's no other group of friends that have the bond that our group of friends have. But that's what every group of friends means. So it's, when you start diving into the psychology of the behaviors and how to get people to adopt behaviors, stick to those behaviors, there's a whole range of areas that you can start looking at. And, my hairs on the back of my neck stand up sometimes, because people go, I say to them, what behavior change models do you know if I'm in an environment where that's appropriate? And they go, well, I know stages of change, or technically the trans-theoretical model of change. And they go, right. They go, well, yeah, we use that. And I went, that's interesting, because that's a model designed to help people give up things. And then they look at me. I mean, it's really easy to explain: pre-contemplation, contemplation, preparation, action, maintenance, termination. I said, but it's actually most of the work that's been done on that's had real impact is in alcohol abuse, smoking, physical abuse, drug abuse. Whereas there are other models that are designed to help you start or maintain behaviors. So sometimes I think as an industry, we latch onto things and go, oh, that's easy to explain, and we can rationalize that in our environment, not understand actually the mechanics of that are actually to help people give things up.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Do you think we're good as an industry using stats and using data? Because I still think it's one of the things that, considering the amount of data we potentially have in our businesses, we're still really poor at using them. I mean, I don't know whether you worked with hotels, and hotels are brilliant. They work together. They have their proper strat level. I mean, we're competing with these 5 hotels. This is the revenue per available room. And they really use that. But as our industry, we don't.
No, and I think, I don't look. The expression is data rich, information or insight poor. We have the numbers. We could use the numbers. Sometimes those numbers are difficult to get out of the software systems that we have. But we've got enough data. Now, we've got also now a massive influx of apps and wearables and things like that. So even more data. The trick, if there is a trick to it, is turning those into actionable behaviors.
Yeah.
What can we do that creates a change that, from my perspective, keeps them longer, keeps them sticking to their exercise programs more likely? I'm interested in those things. We're really good at responding to sales numbers and driving the front end, but almost, the description I always use is a one-night stand. We front-load the experience to such an extent that we actually don't pay attention to what's going on after the first initial week. And then we just hope those people will stay. And if they don't, we're going to find someone to replace them. And, there was a piece this week, I saw it online, I think you even commented on it, from Health Club Management about the new rules around subscriptions, about and stuff. Now, that's been in the States for a while now. It's not right the way across, but it's been there for a while. My fear is that the operators will double down on sales in order to try and stop to retain their income, rather than going, actually, if we just kept people for longer, we'd make more money. But look, we've got data. I think there's a shortage of people being able to interpret the data into behaviours that we can then follow that make a difference.
I think the challenge is we have so many things like the wearables.
Yeah.
How many PTs and clubs then will encourage their members to input that or provide that data so the PT or the instructor can look at it and go, actually, so your heart rate's this, your blood pressure's this is the amount of exercise you're doing, this is what we recommend. I bet they don't, and large majority of the industry doesn't. And so when they do the inductions, they don't even base that on data. They base that on, tell me how you feel, and that has value to a point.
Yeah.
But if you can take all their data and go, this is exactly what you're doing, this is how you respond to exercise, this is the program we're going to give you.
Yeah.
The results would be there, which obviously, as you well know, that if you're getting results and you're turning up, you're more likely to show up because you obviously get the endorphins, you feel better. So I think we've got this. We almost need. So here's a job for you, Paul. We almost need someone to get all that data and go, do you know what? If you've got this, and this data, this is what you can do with it.
Yeah.
This is how, because I don't think the clubs understand. I think if they had the data, they'd be able to train their clients accordingly. I just don't think they know how to take that into usable information to then put it to the client to go, this is how we're going to build your this is going to build your training. This is what we want you to do, and this is what you're going to achieve. Because I think if we did, I think we'd also take that 15% to 30%. I think we'd encourage more people in. Because people don't see the results they want. They also don't understand the results. I think that's the thing. Yeah. You get someone who's obese. They come in, they don't realise it's going to take them 6 months to even feel the benefit, potentially.
And I think, like, for me, I think there's a proportion of members who want to know things by the numbers, and there are others who just don't care. And historically, I was someone who did everything by the numbers. I was a competitive cyclist. I wanted to know my heart rate, my wattage, my times, my distances, all of those things. And I would sit down Boxing Day each year and plan my training sessions for the whole year. I'd have a whole year worth of training. So if someone said to me, what are you doing on April the 19th? I could look it up and go, that'll be an interval session. I'll be doing this. I would do the hard. So I'd periodize the whole thing. Once I stopped cycling, I stopped monitoring. And all I do now is I worry about, have I closed my exercise ring, my stand ring, and my move ring on my Apple Watch.
Wow.
So I think there are groups of people that are motivated by the numbers, and there are people who are not motivated by the numbers. But for those who are, we need to be able to put that into an environment, like you said, where you can go, if you do this, you'll get that, and then that, and then that. I know right at the moment, my daughter's a Thai boxer, and she's got to the stage where she's 14, she needs to do some S&C. Not a lot. But I know when I'm going to take her to the gym, I've got somewhere I can take her and train her. I'm going to spend the first 6 weeks just teaching her the movements. So she knows how to do a landmine thrust. She knows how to do a goblet squat. I'm not going to worry about, does she add muscle mass? Does she add strength? I'm like, learn the exercise and then move on from there. And it's a challenge because people come in and go, well, I've paid for my membership. Where's my body? You know,
but it's true though, isn't it? It's that whole thing. If you had a pill, how much would you pay for it? If it could cure you, it would be unlimited. Yeah. And people do, especially in society now, they want instant results, and that just doesn't exist in exercise. If you've gone in and you're not in great shape, and it took you 10 years to get into the not so great shape you're in, you can't expect to suddenly be in great shape after a month. It's almost doubling that time and going back the other way, isn't it?
But if, like, I'm going to get on my high horse now, but I think if we look at the training we provide to people who want to come into the fitness industry, you know, I don't know who you trained with, Ryan, but when I worked at the YMCA, if you wanted to be a gym instructor, 13 days, 80 hours of training, 50% of that was practical in front of a tutor, watching you teach, giving you feedback. And you worked with 20 different people because that was a number, or 40 because that was the number on the course. And you got to train lots of different people under supervision. You wanted to be a personal trainer, add another 7 weeks to that. Then people would come out with a full comprehension of, if this person's in front of me and they want to talk about nutrition, I can talk about nutrition. I can talk about training. Now, I don't think it's fair that so many trainers go through programs where they never even meet a tutor. It's done remotely. And I know from the business side, that makes a lot of money financially, but we're not getting the quality of instructors we used to get. So they don't.
I think the other challenge, Paul, is we don't actually go from gym instructor to personal trainer.
No.
And so when I worked for Spirit, I went in just on my degree.
Yeah.
It was a what do you call it? A graduate training scheme, apparently.
Yeah.
I mean, it could have been a gym instructor at 16, but
yeah.
Anyway, I went on this thing. But then the first 6 months was learning to be a gym instructor and doing my qualifications and everything else.
Yeah.
Then the next 6 months was PT. Then we had to go away and for the exams and everything else.
Yeah.
But what you've done is you give yourself a basis on the gym floor to understand people, understand how to do the inductions, asking questions, all that. So by the time you got to a PT, the basics were done. Where now the training, you can go from a gym instructor to PT almost in a weekend.
Yeah.
Do the whole thing, level 2, level 3, job done. I'm on the gym floor, weekend or 2 weeks course, whatever it is. And you're still going, but where's the experience that comes with that? And that's why we have this huge cliff of people dropping off as PTs because they're not successful.
No. And and I feel for the PTs.
Absolutely.
It's like, I'm quick to judge them and going, I'm watching this PT training a client and they're rubbish. They have no awareness of where they are. They're not really coaching. They're not improving performance. They're just one level above someone counting 1 to 10. And then I think, okay, well, what were they taught? Where was the examples? Who were those people? And like you said, whether you're at Holmes, you're at Marriott, whether you're at Spirit, there were trainers who'd been there doing it for a while. And if you looked at them, you go, I can see what they're doing. I remember when the late Darren Woodward was at Holmes Place and he introduced results-based training as an approach. As a gym instructor, you couldn't be a personal trainer until you'd introduced 10 customers to the trainers. So it was like this funnel, this sales funnel. So you walk the gym floor, getting to know people, building up your skill of interacting, and basically handing them over to someone else to train them. Because once you'd hit the magic 10, it was like, okay, you can now go on the training that will lead to you being a personal trainer. But it was all those fundamental skills. And I get really wound up when I look at what's being offered, because I think I just think the trainers themselves get a raw deal and then the clients get a raw deal.
I think before the pandemic, the market was going to this budget model, wasn't it? So less and less staff were being employed, and it was almost right, bring freelance. And the whole market went to that. So everybody then wanted all these freelance PTs. Because I think it's massively affected the top end in terms of management as well, because you haven't had this flow from gym instructor to personal trainer to duty manager to sales assistant, club manager. You almost go, I want a manager. But I'm not willing to. So when you look at the likes of John Oxley and all those guys up at GM Active who were investing in a management training course, you think, well done to you guys, because what you're trying to do now is actually bring succession through. Whereas you look, Christ, the amount of independent gyms or franchises that we're trying to employ managers for. And yes, there's some decent ones out there, but they're almost able to stamp their authority and go, this is what salary I want, because the quality is just not there because there's no experience.
No, and I think, and this isn't a dig at the franchises, but I get people who come and go, or they apply for a job and they've worked in a franchise and they go, oh, I'm a manager of a club, and they come to an independent club of a medium size and they don't understand P&Ls, they don't understand health and safety, they don't understand HR, because they've had a formula to follow. And you've probably seen that with other consultants coming into the industry. I see it whenever there's a big, when like LA Fitness finished a number of years ago, suddenly on LinkedIn, there were 50 more consultants. And I giggle because I'm thinking, you don't realize how hard this is. And then you meet with them and all they're trying to do is sell what they learned at LA Fitness, because they don't have the breadth of experience to go, actually, based on your business and this resource, this is what you do. It's almost like they come in with their idea.
Absolutely. That's the one thing I always said at Black Raccoon. We would never go down the route of selling a program as such. So it was never, I'm introduced. Now, for some clubs that works, you know what I mean? If you've got a small group training and you just want a small group training program in your club and someone's got a formula for that, then absolutely go and high. But that's not what we do. It's very much around, I'll come into you like you do. You go into the business, go, where are you at? Let's look at your numbers. Let's look at your business. Because quite often you'll go in and go, sales aren't your issue. No. Sales aren't your issue. Or leads aren't your issue. Yeah. Actually, it's what happens once you got the lead that's the problem, or it's your operations, or it's your attention. So it's difficult to, but you see it all the time. As soon as a business drops, suddenly you see a plethora of consultants. You go, well, most of you won't be there. You'll be back into work soon.
I joke with my sister, because my sister works with me in the business. I said, we know when a company's going up for sale, because all the area managers get made redundant.
Yeah.
And suddenly you see all these people popping up on LinkedIn and looking for new opportunities, and you go, oh, that company's up for sale then. And then it gets announced. You can see the behaviours. If you've been around long enough, you can see what's coming and what's happening.
Absolutely. Now, just because we're coming towards the end, Paul, in terms of people that work with you, what advice would you give to clubs from a retention point of view? To sort of go, okay, if you were to go back into your business today, what are the top 3 things that you'd ask a club owner to take a look at?
I would look at the onboarding process, because I think the onboarding process, and the challenge is the onboarding process is usually designed for the gym, people going to the gym. But if you've got Group X, it's usually just look at a timetable. So there's no onboarding. So look at the onboarding process for the
just on that.
Go on.
I was just going to say, just on that point quickly, actually, with the automations that have come in now, do you think that's a good thing that automations are brought in for the onboarding process to allow that to happen, or do you think it's taken away some of the personality? Sorry to interrupt you.
No, it's all right. I think there's value in both. If I turned up, if let's say you had a club, and I turned up today and I said I wanted to join, and you said you have to go through our induction, you're not actually recognizing my experience and what I want from it. And I might go, do you know what, Ryan? Love you to death, mate, but I don't care what my body fat is. I just want to go and lift. Other people, if they've got no experience, absolutely need that support. So I don't think having a blanket, everybody does this. The automations and access control for someone who's experienced, let them in and out, but at least put your head up if you're behind front of house. If you've got front of house staff, say hello, goodbye. It's those types of things. I think we have to work with it. I think there's a wonderful film called The Creator that came out recently, which is about AI, and I think it really helps you rethink about where we're going with technology and human. And I'm not going to spoil it for anybody. Go watch it and think about, how does that apply to our business?
Absolutely.
So going back to your question, my first point would be look at your onboarding. I'd then look at monthly active users. How often are people using? Then they're generally not using your club as frequently as you think they are.
And what's the cutoff to risk? Is it 1 a week? Is it 2 a week?
1 a week. As long as what we see in our data is, and it does vary a little bit, but as long as they're coming once a week, they tend to stay. And in fact, if you look at most people's behaviors, if they have a hobby, they tend to do it once a week. If they're an enthusiast, they tend to do it 2 to 3 times a week. So if I went to the cinema once a week, you wouldn't think anything odd of me. If I start going twice a week, you go twice a week? We have to think of it. So if you look at the studies, lifetime, the physical activity studies in terms of what people do in their lifestyles, usually once a week's that point of they'll maintain. I recognise they don't get the results from that, so I'm not naive to that. But as long as you can get to at least once a week, as soon as it drops below once a week, and I've said this many times before, what people do is they look for reasons in your business to cancel. They don't want to take responsibility themselves. They don't want to go, I'm not going often enough. They start going, when I go there, it's really busy. When I go in the showers, it's not clean. When I pull past front of house, no one speaks to me. Now I can quit with a clear conscience because you're not holding up your end.
Yeah.
So onboarding monthly active users, and I will be looking at lifetime value. What's the average length of stay? And the average length of stay is measured as the median, not the mean. I know a lot of people don't understand that, but when you do a study or you measure something and you're looking for the mean, it means that everybody has had the equal opportunity to be there the same amount of time. Whereas memberships, not everybody's had the same opportunity. People who've only been there a month have only had a month to be a member. People who've been there 12 months have 12 months. So you do the median length of stay. Now, I did that with a small group PT business platform up in Oldham. And they were measuring it and they weren't quite sure. And we looked at it. And once they got their median length of stay, we knew exactly what we needed to do to add months. And I think Mark and Steve have said they were originally at 9 months and now they're at 15.
Wow.
Yeah. Which has a really big impact on a small business.
In terms of financially, it is incredible. People don't realize that. And I mean, a lot of the clubs, and you'll know this, don't look at that long-term value at all.
No.
And so they could have, I don't know, 700 members, 800 members, and it stays at that rough figure. And they think, oh, we're doing really well.
Yeah.
But all they're doing is churning big numbers in and out every month.
Yeah.
If keep them and you make far more money.
Well, also, we've got data and we're doing this for a big American organization at the moment. We can show them what the secondary spend is as well, based on visit frequency and how long.
Doesn't that increase the longer they stay, the actual average amount of secondary spending? I can remember reading one of your posts once, and it was almost, once you reach that 9 months, the difference in terms of what they were spending outside of the membership versus that first month.
It's about 40% more. So if you had, let's say the membership was 100 quid a month, just as an easy number, if you can get them beyond 6 months and towards 9, if you have the facility to give them additional stuff, that can go up to as much as 140 per month per member.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that's only based on the fact that they're there longer, they see your facilities, they're part of the community, they're more likely to invest in the other things that you're doing.
But they also get into the behavior of, and a lot of the boutiques have got really clever on this, because it's like you turn up, you do your workout, you have your shake ready when you've finished. So you don't even have to ask. You only have to say, can you give me Paul's shake? And it's a $7 shake. And suddenly the revenue generated per visit is going up and up and up and up. But that doesn't initially happen, because initially when you go in, you go, I'm just going to do the workout.
Yeah.
And then you do the workout. And then when you've been there a little while, you go, I want the T-shirt. I want this quarters T-shirt. So every quarter, Soul Cycle did it brilliantly. They ended up with monthly releases of clothing, whereas like limited edition, they made $14 million in 1 year based on clothing.
God.
Because they'd have a Soul Cycle, and there'd only be like 4 or 5 options. It wouldn't be like a full clothesline.
Yeah.
It'd be like, here's this month's tank top, here's this month's T-shirt, here's the socks, here's the design. We've got 50 of these per club. Boom, gone. So people bought them because it was like part of the community, part of their identity, and limited availability.
Wow.
So those are the 3 things: onboarding, monthly active users, and lifetime value. Those are the 3 things if you do nothing else.
Awesome. And in terms of, just one final question before I ask you in terms of levers, so when you get to the point of lever, do you see the value in sending like a lever survey? Does that have an impact of being able to turn people around, or is it?
Look, we've got a process we use that has about a 20% success rate, which isn't bad. No. But usually by the time they've got to the point where they're leaving, there's usually they're gone. It's a bit like a relationship. By the time someone says that's it, it's over, I'm leaving, and you go, I'll change. It's too late because mentally they just waited to tell you, and they've moved on already, and you're just learning it for the first time. But I think you should always try and finish it on really good terms, because we've got a process as well where we get like 5-star reviews from people who've left, which is really good in terms of your marketing. I used to train there, I've left, but given the opportunity, I'd definitely go back. So I think some of the surveys we see, and I'm sometimes skeptical about this because I look at who's, like, there's a report on who's left in the industry. And I'm like, yeah, but you've got a financial incentive to do that report. So, and you've guided the report, you've asked it leading questions, blah, blah, blah. Often the reason, if you track, one of the things we've done a lot of, if you track what they've said their reason for leaving is, sometimes those are genuine. Often it goes back to something we mentioned right at the beginning. They just weren't coming into the club. So now the cost of a workout, instead of it being I'm paying $100 a month and I was using it 5 times a week, I'm now only using it 3 times a week. That's $33 a workout. I can't afford that. The value proposition has changed. So if you look behind the visit frequency, you can usually save the ones who have I'm going to call it a superficial complaint about busyness, cleanliness, staff interaction, who are using the clubs. You can usually save them. You can't save the ones who are genuinely leaving, which is a completely different podcast in its own right. And you can't stop the ones whose visit frequency has dropped so low that actually the cost of each visit has just become disproportionate.
Yeah, makes sense. Because the thing is, a lot of these clubs, they'll try ringing it hard. We can't get them back in. You're still going, chances are they've already gone.
Yeah.
And I guess it's for these clubs to sort of go, actually, what is the value in spending all that time chasing those people that have technically gone?
Yeah.
What we should do is put all that time back into the ones that are still in the club and don't allow them to get to that point. So catch them as their usage is dropping.
Most definitely.
And put the effort there rather than at the end. Awesome. Now, one final question I like to ask Paul is, in terms of motivation, what motivates you to do what you do in terms of your job or life? What
okay. So within work, I'm motivated because I just think we can do better. I think we can do better as a sector, as an industry, whatever you want to call it. I think at the individual club level, we can do better. And I think for operators, and the reason I set the business up the way I set it up is that I believe 2 things to be true. Operators can earn more money by retaining their members for longer if they provide a better service or a better experience.
Yeah.
Members also then get more value for their money and stay longer. So it's a win-win. The operator wins, but the customer wins. And I've seen so much bad practice over my years in the industry. We can do better. And so I used to think I could change the whole industry. I don't believe that now. I just tend to work with the people who are attracted to what I do as a business. So we don't do masses of advertising and cold calling. Do you want to improve your retention stuff? We just stick to the people that come through. And I'm curious. I'm curious in terms of, I don't think we'll ever crack the code on exercise adherence completely. I don't think we'll ever crack the code on member behavior completely. But we can keep nudging forward. We can keep nudging forward and going, here's a bit. And that motivates me. I like to learn. You can see from the books, I like to read and digest. And I just look at businesses and think there is so much more you can do. But actually, even if you just did this little bit, it would have such a big impact.
Yeah. Do you ever fancy going back into research and doing some of that again?
Well, we do. I think because of the nature of what we do, I'm on top of that quite a lot anyway, but that's client research. And we try and share that with our posts and our social media. We've just had data in for the very first time on members that identify as transgender as a gender. So we have male, female, transgender, and prefer not to say. And so it's like every now and again we get another little insight. I would like to have more time to perhaps follow up on some of the things I'd be really interested in. But research costs a lot of money. The time and the actual cost is often too prohibitive. So we do what we can. Yeah. My PhD, there's a copy of it behind my shoulder there. My PhD took 6 years part-time to complete. I don't know how many hours that was. I know that I was paying £9,000 a year to the university to study there, and they weren't dragging it out. They weren't, I did mine on a part-time basis. So you usually take about 8 years. So I got mine, I was ready after 4, and then we had to do a few other, but research costs a lot of money. And sometimes some of the things people come to me and go, can you research this? I'm like, no, because it won't make any difference.
Well, that's the point, isn't it? It's sort of going, well, if you're going to do research, it has to then be able to give you the value. To go, right, this is what we're going to get back from it. This is how we can change the industry. This is how we can change exercise uptake or whatever it is. But if you can't, it's pointless doing the research, isn't it? No,
and I get companies come to me all the time going, we'd like to pay you to do some research to show this is true. I'm like, I don't do that. I don't do that.
Well, that's a bit like the old sugar's bad for you. Well, no, sorry, fat's bad for you. Well, who paid for the study? British Sugar.
Yeah. Breakfast is the most important meal of the day, as funded by Kellogg's.
Yeah. Well, have you ever heard the story? Going off track, have you ever heard the story of why eggs and bacon is a staple in American diets for breakfast?
No, go on.
Nothing to do with the nutritional value. Basically, I can't remember around what time it started, but the butchers were struggling for sales.
Right.
So what they did, they got the guy. This guy was massive into PR at the time and into changing people's minds. He was really good at it, and he basically went round and paid. They paid all the doctors. So they took like thousands of doctors, gave them loads of money to come out and say that bacon and eggs was the most nutritious way to eat in the morning. And that's what kick-started. That is the only reason bacon and eggs, I don't know about the UK, this was in America, but that's the only reason in America why bacon and eggs are a staple breakfast for them. It's because they paid loads of doctors to say, yes, it's nutritious. That's the way you do it.
Yeah.
It's crazy, isn't it?
Would I like to do more research? Yes. Would I like to do it on the areas I'm interested in? Yes. Will I find time to do that? Hopefully in the next few years I will. We're working on things that will give us an opportunity to gather data really quickly.
Oh, well, look forward to that. Well, I won't keep any more of your time. I really appreciate it. I love spending time and talking to you, Paul, because you're so full of knowledge. So hopefully we will catch up soon next time you're at. I know you're at the Independent Gyms event. You're saying talking.
Rob Handy's event. I'm going to say Solihull. Is it Solihull?
Solihull, yes. Solihull Convention Centre, I think it is.
Yeah, and I think that's on the 4th of July. So I'm there. And I think I've got one other UK event I'm speaking at this year, but I think that's it for the UK. Everything else is international. Well,
lucky them. But we look forward to seeing you on the 4th because obviously Rob's event is really good. So Independent Gyms says should come along anyway. But now that you're there, it'll be even better. So appreciate your time this morning, Paul. Welcome. And we will catch you soon.
Take care, Ryan. All the best.